All right, I call this meeting to order. So do we have, hi Ray,
Hi.
see you. So do we have any, attendees?
Nobody has signed up to speak.
Okay, nobody else signers. Okay, so did everybody have a chance to look at last month's minutes?
Yes.
Were there any corrections or comments about it?
Nope.
All right, would anyone like to make a motion to approve the September minutes?
I move to accept the September 13th, 2023 meetings as presented.
Any second?
I'll second.
All right. And I'm assuming we don't have any public comments, correct?
We
Since
do not.
nobody signed
Nothing
up.
in the chat.
Okay. All right.
Do we, I think we need to vote on
So
the
we're-
minutes.
Oh, yeah.
What?
I think we need to vote. on
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
So
Thank you.
you got a.
This is so out of my realm.
Yeah.
Do I, can we vote, what am I gonna say? So, how we vote for the minutes?
So
They were,
all in favor?
all in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
All opposed?
I will
Thank you.
abstain since I was not at the meeting.
Okay,
So I think we're ready for the bond updates, correct?
yes, and one piece, I will tell you, you probably already figured it out, it's gonna be cold in this room, so feel free to keep your jackets.
Yeah.
That is the last, one of the last pieces of this building is getting the heat. Completely working.
So, great.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Good to see you again. You know, this past month has been a very positive month for progress and stuff getting ready for these openings, as you can see where we're at here. Sisters will be coming online here shortly. One of the things that we have been working on the last couple of months has been our master development schedule, and that's the schedule for all of the projects. And we did a complete evaluation of how each project was functioning, how we were organizing and sequencing the work on all of the projects. And I've made some changes which are reflected in the dates that are in the report. And what really changed is how we sequence the installation of the all the early learning elections and staff movement. So our construction durations we're overlapping some of the owner furnishing stuff with construction. And we had to do that with Sisters in Lapine, or we tried to do that with Sisters in Lapine and realized it really wasn't a good process. And it was tough on our vendors, it was tough on staff, because there was just too much happening at once. So we streamlined that and reorganized that. Now, what it did do is it adjusted some of our opening dates because we pushed out and gave more time and better separation for each vendor as we go through it. And that's what's reflected in my summary and in the table that's in here. So you'll see there's new dates on the openings, but the construction really doesn't change. One that did change in construction was on Stevens Ranch. We've actually adjusted that start date up earlier. We were looking at starting after the new year, and now we're looking at starting right before the new year in December. And so that made some adjustment there, and it made an adjustment to the end date because the overall duration didn't change. We just rotated it. And then built in our time frame for everything that it takes to fit out the building after. So from a schedule standpoint, those are the biggest changes that have happened. We published that schedule at the end of September, issued it to all of our team members and everybody for us so that we're all working off of the same plan. It's published on the website as well. We always publish them just for anybody who wants to access and see what we're doing, it's there. So from a schedule standpoint, that's where we're at. It's tracking really well. You know, Redmond is deep into construction and tracking. We had a topping out event in Redmond, and it's where we're literally placing the final pieces at the top of the building. And it's a tradition in the construction industry, and you'll see, if you drive by, you'll see a tree up on the top of the roof there.
Mhm.
And, but it's the meaning of you've reached the top and you've gotten to that point. And so it's a major milestone, and we're right on construction schedule right now with that. And everything's looking good going forward. You know, the planning and organizing that Kirby is really doing to make sure that things in the future are on track. We went through their tracking logs and how they're tracking all the parts and pieces. You know, supply chain has always been an issue that all industries and construction deals with, getting materials out of manufacturers into the site. So, I think their efforts are really showing up in what they're doing, how they're doing it, and how they're monitoring it and reporting it to us. So we're very happy with that progress and how the project is going. You know, as Sisters and Lapine are both opening up this month and getting wrapped up, and we'll have some details of getting those things kind of finished, punch lists and minor changes, and looking at some options that we may not have implemented early on, that we may say, you know, it might be a good option. And so we're gonna do some exploring of that over the next couple months with DPL and talk about, hey, is there anything that we've learned, or, you know, especially with these remodels, some things we said, man, we can live with leaving that piece as is. And we may revisit that and say, was that the best decision? Could we, should we consider amending that? And that's a study that we'll go through, like I said, over the next couple months, look at them and then make some decisions on that. The temporary trailer facility in Sisters is now completely, you know, shut down and moved and set up at Sun River, and is starting to get fit out and get ready, because we'll be closing Sun River here in another week or so and opening the temporary facility. And Sun West Builders, our GC, commences construction at the end of the month, 1st of November. And so they're well along in their process. You know, we awarded their contract, the final GMP, back in June, July. You remember, is when we approved that, authorized them to go. So they have actually been working diligently on all of the setup, subcontracts getting done, shop drawing submittals, and materials being ordered. So things that have been struggled to get, mechanical equipment, switchgear equipment, light fixtures, that all have long lead times, are all already on order. So compared to what we faced here in Sisters in Lapine, where you kind of went to award and start work, they've had a runway to get a lot of that kind of stuff done up front. And so I think that's been very positive in preparing to have a better process on Sun River. So everybody's excited about moving forward with that. We're actually doing a lessons learned activity with the whole team next week to take what did we do and what did we learn from Sisters in Lapine, and how do we start applying it to all of the other projects, and what did we do differently. The whole team is pretty engaged in that, and that's really good to see, you know, that people have some open dialogue about what worked, what didn't, and what is should be changed and what is fine to leave alone. So I think those will help us all as we progress through it. One, it's not really part of the schedule, but as we move into Sisters in Lapine, I think there's going to be a lot of learning about what works and what doesn't in operating the building, and what are the pieces. We've talked about different pieces of shelving and furniture, and does this really work? Does this not? Do we want to change it? Probably they'll start moving stuff around a little bit. You know, they like to do that. So sure, it'll look different the next time you pop in. So that was really on schedule, very comfortable that we're, focused on in the right direction and we're meeting those goals that we've set out. On the budget, you'll see that there was no budget adjustments or activity, in the report, but there's actually a lot of budget activity and evaluations. We received our 50% construction documents on Stevens Ranch in early September and went through a budget update, cost estimate update with Kirby Nagelhout and did a review of that and very pleased to say that we're in budget. It's very sound. It was well detailed, captured a lot, and at 50% construction documents, we pretty much know everything we're going to do in building. And they're getting the technical engineering aspects and designs finished up. And so I think between our design teams review and comments on the cost estimate and Kirby's, they're very much in sync, very much aligned. Within Kirby's GMP, we've always had a cost and estimating contingency and a escalation contingency, or as costs continue to escalate with inflation. And we have not used those up. We're carrying those forward. So we're in budget with a reasonable sound cost and estimate. So it's not even touching the owner's contingency yet, which is our second layer of financial protection, right? And it allows us to do that. So it makes me feel really good about that. Our early learning, we had our first big estimate on the Stevens Ranch early learning. And as you can imagine, that's the most elaborate components we have. And they're right in budget as well. So that was really good to see, okay, we're tracking to what we want. We're not having to cut back or anything. And those are in alignment on manufacturer. And you can see their work out here with all of the early learning components. Figure Plant has done a really good job of working with the designer on figuring out how to make components and build it in their manufacturing plant that can come out and be assembled and are cost effective. So some good collaboration going on there. That's going on. All of our other soft costs and furniture and those types of costs are all being evaluated and reviewed. I haven't seen any fluctuations yet. But those will continue over the next month or two. They kind of trail the building slightly. And so those are moving right along. The other budgets throughout our branch budgets look to be very sound of where we're going with that, where we're at on our GMPs there and relative to contingencies that are allocated in there for all of the elements of furniture, shelving, construction, our AV costs or AMH, the RFID technology, all of those are in really sound. We have a couple things that we'll go through today. One of them being on Redmond furniture award, and that budget came in, or the final cost came in line with our budget, actually slightly under. So that was a real good signal. And that was the last major piece on Redmond that we needed to award. We awarded all of the shelving elements a couple months ago. And so Redmond is really set up to move actively on through to the end, with really good time frames for the vendors. Vendors being the shelving components and all of our furniture, our RFID technology, our AV, early learning, all of those guys have ample time. So it kind of relative back to the schedule, ample time to go through their manufacturing process and be ready to go. I would say here, as a learning experience, they were tight on their timeframes to get things built. And we were really going through a lot of learning through the design process of what we wanted and making adjustments and changes. And most of those have already been implemented into Sun River and Redmond and are being and the base designs of Stevens Ranch, and will ultimately make it into downtown Bend. So that learning curve is really starting to show up, where there wasn't a lot of learning curve on Sisters and Lapine. There's a lot of learning curve happening on the other projects, and I think it'll benefit us all in lower costs, better delivery, and better schedules, which is all about the process that the whole team goes through. So happy about that. But yeah, from a budget standpoint, everything is riding kind of right along on that. Contingencies remain the same in there. We do still have the reserve contingency that'll be evaluated this in through the last quarter here with Piper Sandler. On that, so not much else on the budget. On procurement contracts, like I mentioned, we have the Redmond furniture to go through and the initial GMP with Kirby. And so this will be for a fairly large group of initial subcontractors that we want to bring them on. And part of it was to time it concurrent with this 50% CD budget. And it was to say, okay, we want to have a high confidence level that the project's in budget. That's sound as we award this first big chunk. And so they've done a really good job, like I said, going through that budget, but also then securing some of our major trades. And I'll go into that a little bit more when we run through those awards. From an insurance standpoint, I did meet with Brown and Brown, who's the broker and handles all the insurance. And we've talked about our schedule and all of the projects and where we're at and how each of our policies are setting up. And one of our big policies is the DSIP, which is a branch or a district-wide liability policy. And every subcontractor, every vendor gets enrolled into that. And so it's a broad coverage that we have. And that's one that we're going to be updating that. They're looking at that right now as to when does it end and what is the sequence with each of the projects. So they're taking our schedule and going back to the carrier and saying, okay, here is our timeframes. What kind of adjustments? And some of them they even looked at and said, well, when downtown Bend starts, everything else is done. They may recommend taking a different approach on that insurance, whether it's a new policy or some type of amendment policy. But it's something that they're actively looking at. It helps us with our forecasting of future insurance premiums that we would need to pay on that, which I'm building into our budget, but also to make sure we have the right amount of coverage at all times through the process. Our builder's risk insurance, we put that in place for Sun River, so we're all covered there. And they're out right now on the market for Stevens Ranch, and that'll most likely be coming to you guys for authorization level in November. So no entitlements, of course, on Stevens Ranch on design and construction. Like I said, 50% CDs are completed, and they're cranking right along. We'll actually be at about a 75% CD level next week.
Wow.
And 95% in the beginning of December, and that 95% set goes into the city for our main building permit. The 50% set went into the city at the beginning of September for the structural permit. And that's a permit that allows us to build all of the building foundations, all of the concrete walls and masonry walls, and select underground utilities, and which allows us to start that component. That component takes about 4 to 5 months of work, and then our building permit kind of overlap comes in right behind it, and it just lets you to continue. So
Is that what the SIM permit is?
now the SIM permit is a site improvement permit. And so we've received our grading permit already, that the city approved in August. The SIM, which captures all of the surface improvements, so curbs, gutters, pavements, and all of our site utilities, so sewer, water, storm drain. That's going through right now. And when Kirby starts construction, they're of course gonna start with grading and getting the site prepped. But they want to be able to roll right into underground utilities and get that there so that as we get going towards starting the building, which is out in March, to start the foundation, that they have their underground utilities well advanced and anything that has to be dug, because sometimes those can be really deep. And they want to get them dug, backfilled and up so that they don't have big open trenches. And that permit has gone well. You know, we submitted it and the city gave us round of comments and the team addressed those comments here in September and resubmitted. We're back in plan check on those. And expecting to have that permit completed by the end of the year. So we're good to commence our grading work, but that allows us to just continue rolling. And so we have literally four different permits that phase. And that was something we worked out with the city and our team of how we could go about that. And it's tracking really well. We've had good interaction with the city, good responses going back and forth with them, which is good to see. You know, they've been actually pretty prompt, and the city in the past has been somewhat slow because of COVID staffing issues, and they changed their entire system of how you submit and process documents from an old paper system to a new electronic system that they rolled out right before COVID hit, and it was just very, very challenging for everybody and for them. But they've really made great headway. We're seeing it on different projects now that they're starting to get over that hump that really drove them slowly. And we're seeing that on this process right now with Stevens Ranch. So that's been very positive. You know, the other components within our building design is well advancing, our shelving, our furniture. Those furniture definitely tracks a little behind. Our early learning, as I said, we budgeted that based on 100% design development documents, and that's in alignment, and that's tracking right with, it's staggered behind, but tracking right with our design development. So I think overall, we're doing well there. A lot of reviews going on. I think that DPL is in constant plan review every week. There's always deadlines. They got to turn something in. I think something's due this Friday. But so it taxes them, but they're on it, and it's challenging because it's an enormous amount of information, and you've got active projects and projects in design and how things are functioning and working out here, and how's that now. It makes you rethink those things. So the whole design process is very fluid, very active and ongoing. In a sense, all of the projects, even the ones that were under construction, we're still looking at stuff and checking over submittals and things to say, okay, are we doing the right thing? And so they're really actively involved in doing all of that. You know, on Stevens Ranch, relative to the developer, they are actively out there. I don't know if you've got a chance to click on the link for the video, but they're actively building Santorini Street, which is the street that bounds our east side, and bringing utilities in around us. And
What's the north side street?
the north side of our property is
Yeah.
actually a drive aisle on our property.
Oh, okay.
And they're actually, you can see they graded down that north side
Right.
because there's a water main that comes from 27th Street up to Santorini, and it's how they loop it together with their mains, and that's all with ADJOURN water. So they rough graded down there so they can put that water line. And then we'll actually build all the service improvements over top of that. And so they're moving along actively. They're working on getting things ready to go in 27th Street and the roundabout. I think pretty much got most of their issues with the city finalized there. They have a very deep and I wouldn't say complex, but it's a pretty intense new sewer main that they're putting putting in for the city. And it runs the length of 27th Street from, I think, Reed Market all the way south. And so they've got that all figured out, and we'll be seeing that commence. That work will continue parallel with us over the next year and a half as they continue around that. Santorini Street, ultimately, it fronts us, but it becomes their bypass road. They're building a road that extends across other parts of their property, so they can close 27th Street while they rebuild it. Because the sewer line is so deep that it's hard to keep two-way traffic, so they're literally building a bypass road
Wow.
around as part of, and that's what one of the things that they're under construction on now, so.
Will
those
they
are
keep that open when they work on the roundabout?
They'll keep the bypass open, put in the roundabout, and do 27th Street. The first phase is all along our frontage, and then a little bit further past. They built 27th Street in phases. They did too much to take out at once, so we'll see them doing that. And then all of Wilderness Street. You can see on Wilderness Street in the video, they've come down to within about 200-300 feet of 27th Street already, and it's. I'm not sure what yours look like. We got a video the other day, and asphalt is on the street in their area. I'm not sure if that was on the video that was in the report, but I'll send those updated videos. They send it to me pretty frequently. They're flying them, so, which is always nice to see. But they're making good progress, advancing their work, and they have goals of starting their residential building first quarter. So
there's basically, there's gonna be residential area just on the other side of the street from the library location.
they won't start there, but the house is in back. So if you watch that video, you can see all the streets that are already built. Directly east of us is a set of apartment buildings.
Okay,
And then on the other side of that, it's all a single family, and they're gonna start with all the single family. But the apartments directly across the street will be coming online. They've advanced that to start earlier. I haven't heard the exact date, they'll get it graded and prepped, but I'm not sure when they're gonna start those buildings, but they're gonna start their single family homes. So we'll see those going up. And those will be being built, while we're building, and I would think they may actually be opening right to buyers prior to us opening. That they'll be, because they can build homes faster. But it's probably at least a year after they start, I would think, before they start offering homes out, so. I think the other things we kind of touched on, with Sun River, we have all our permits, we're starting construction there. All of our awards are done. The thing that we're looking at right now is lessons learned and little tweaks and adjustments based on what we've learned here, these projects and everything there. So that's pretty much it. East Bend, we're doing an evaluation of that scope and what that would entail. And so that is being worked on at present, and we expect to have that ready to discuss with you guys in November here, so that'll be coming up. There's no current activity in downtown Bend, but downtown Bend will actually start in the first quarter of next year. So as we complete the design on Stevens Ranch, Miller Hall will then move right into the next and final phase of downtown Bend. And so we'll start planning what it's gonna be, where it's gonna go. And it's gonna get the benefit of everything we've learned on all of these projects. What do we do? How do we design and fit it out as a building? So I think that's gonna be pretty exciting because it's such a great building and great location that we can do a lot in that renovation. So pretty excited about that. Questions? I think that's most of everything, the financing and that stuff.
Any questions, or Ray? No?
Wow, Ray's got his hand up.
Ray, you've got a question?
Yeah, progressing nicely. I have a question on the very last, well, it's not the last page. But your second to last page, I believe.
Yep.
On the donations and grants, we've got $7 million. Where does that stand right now? And can we get a written plan as to how we're going to be raising the $7 million in donations and grants? Because that's a sizable chunk of change.
Correct. Yeah, so I can say, you know, we targeted about 2 million in grants. And then 5 million in donations is the targets, and that can fluctuate up or down with each of those. Currently, we've, you know, received the $1 million grant on our PD system for Stevens Branch. We've received, I think, 2 or 3 other smaller grants, but they amount to about 300,000, I believe, so far on them. And we are looking at pursuing the same grant that we received on Stevens Ranch. Power company came back to us in Redmond, and we weren't approved on it in the previous application for Redmond. But I did hear that they recommend that we might resubmit our application for that one. So we have a few other grants that I think are still being investigated around some EV charging system grants. I think there was a potential tax grant. I don't know that we ruled that out because of our PV. A lot of the grants are centered around our renewable energy. And so those are on the grant side. On the donation side, I know that we've received some pledges already. I don't remember exactly what the dollar amount was. And I probably need Chantal to maybe give you a summary of the strategy around or donation. Sorry.
Yeah, so right now we're in what is considered the quiet phase. So we actually don't want to share too much at this time because it is when we're going out to our largest donors. And it's best to keep it somewhat quiet so that people don't start jumping in with much smaller donations. So there's always a tactic with when you're trying to raise dollars like we're trying to raise. And so we launched back in August, and we've been meeting with some larger donors and have had some interest, but nothing fully completed yet, but getting close. So we feel pretty comfortable and confident. Yeah.
You feel? Oh, go ahead, Cynthia.
So did you have more of a question, Ray?
Oh yeah, I thought you had one. No. Oh.
If you have
I
another
think
one,
it's
I'll speak after you.
Could we get a report on what your plans are? If you have a confidential report to us.
We could have a confidential report, yes. In a couple months from now, I think that would be fine. Yeah.
I would highlight that any report to the board is never
Yeah,
confidential.
it's never fully confident.
Yeah,
Well,
it's public record.
And that's kind of the issue. So it will be going public in about 1.5 years. And at that time, we'll be inviting the full public to engage and participate. But again, like for these first 18 months, it's really, really imperative to have any success that you do keep it quiet. And this is just what normal capital campaign policies are, and but all of them follow. So we're just doing the same. Yeah.
But I think we can get a
Hmm?
summary of what we're doing, and what we wouldn't do is list all the people that we're targeting and amounts.
Yeah.
but Could easily do that.
yeah, that would be helpful.
Okay, well, first of all, when I was looking at the pictures of Redmond, there's a metal roof thing. What is that?
So that's the mechanical well, and so it's sunken down a little bit, and HVAC equipment will be located on that. It needs to be outside to ventilate. the room.
Oh, I see. So that literally, that whole piece will not be covered. That will,
No.
that is the roof.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, then the roofing will come down
Yeah.
and it's a well.
I drive by it about every 2 weeks and
Yeah.
most of the walls are all in
Yeah.
and it's really exciting. Anyway, one other question I had was, is the reason that the, Stevens Ranch location is scheduled, been able to be moved up is because of the rapidness of the work with the CDs with the city of Bend?
With the city,
So that's
It's
because that's
because,
kind of
yes.
gotten ahead of where you guys thought it was gonna be?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
our site plan approval was almost just shy of 2 months quicker than we originally anticipated.
That's good.
Our grading permit was about 3 months earlier than anticipated. We could go start grading, could have started grading on the property in September. But we weren't far enough on our design and contracting and closing on the land to be comfortable to ever recommend that. But no, it is because of the efforts between our design team and the city to really advance our permitting.
That's good.
Yeah.
It's nice that
You
they,
know, for the last 2 years, it's been going the opposite way and always a level of frustration with clients of having to tell them, if we're not gonna start as when planned because we're still waiting on permits. And so this is very exciting and pleasant news to share.
okay. So I think we're ready to move on to the,
Ray has another question.
oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, so our question is, you don't anticipate we're gonna have any delays or anything due to weather coming on? Winter?
You know, for, and I'll just go through the different projects. Sun River, no, because of the renovation that we're doing there. And the site work that's anticipated at Sun River is planned for coming out of winter and doing that in, you know, the months of March, April, and May. So we're pretty well set there. On Redmond, Kirby has actually made a lot of efforts, knowing that we were gonna build through the winter in Redmond. They've made a lot of preparations to keep the site stabilized so that it can be driven on even when wet. They have a plan in place for snow removal. A lot of the surfaces up there are actually protected already by waterproof membranes that are temporary, so that as the rains are hitting, we're not getting damage to it. And there's likely to be some days where we're not gonna work because of weather, but I think that they are prepared and ready to work through that throughout the winter. At Stevens Ranch, we had a lot of discussion with Kirby about that, and they actually were very encouraged to start the grading operations during the winter period. And one of the things they said is that, you know, the operations of the grading and digging the deep trenches and all of that is they have to dig through rock, which is as hard as it's gonna get. And so that process, the frozen ground really doesn't affect it so much. The other is our moisture is much higher, more rain, more snow. So the ground has more moisture in it. And when you're grading, one of the things that graders have to do, I've ever watched them, they're spraying water constantly. And so when operating in the winter time, that actually you are not applying water. So it's more cost effective because there's a lot of moisture in the ground and it's easily handled. So no, I think same thing. On those days when we get a big snow,
Oh, yeah.
they're gonna be they may not be working, but they're gonna be able to get back in there and go right away. We've got our building foundations going at the latter part of March, which is coming as we come out of the winter. And we talked about that with them of, hey, does this still make sense to you? And they felt very confident that that was a good time to commence that work, because we've be leading the winter. And the initial startup, they weren't real concerned about that, and they will actually build the building pad that the building sits on and the footings are dug into through the winter and have it's a pre-engineered pad, it's all graded and allows them to dig the footings a lot easier. So,
That's good, yeah, because I was a little concerned because the fire service predictions are for a colder, wetter winter this year,
yeah,
and delays cost us money. So that's good to hear that they prepared for it. Good.
yeah.
Thanks.
Any other questions? We're ready to move to the Redmond furniture procurement.
Yeah, so. Again, just to give you a reminder, we have our cooperative agreements that we are working through and utilizing and working with our vendor, the WRO, and have gone through, priced out, of course, all of the furniture. And I attached that, not that you need to go through it, but I wanted to at least let you see kind of what we get and we go through. And so these are vetted by our team within Red Point and the Miller Paul team and their staff that literally spec out all of these pieces. Libby, probably heard her name a time or two, but she knows each and one of these pieces, and we go through the process of verifying that everything is available, amending it when necessary, because there's always some fabric that's been discontinued on it. And this is set up, ready to award. We'll get these things then processed and purchase orders that WRO will out to their all the vendors here by the end of the year. And then that allows us a good 7 months for those all of that furniture to be secured. Goes into different warehouses. Some of it is direct ship. As I mentioned, it's within budget there, so that was always a nice thing. Your budget is aligned with the final costs, and part of with the cooperatives we have contained pricing because a lot of it's already established through the cooperatives and through our other pricing that we did on all 3 branches. There's a lot of things that are very similar. We're buying this chair hundreds of times over. And same with these tables. And so we can really see a lot of that value and that those chairs, sometimes there's certain effects for inflation that are allowable, but we have a lot more control over them. So questions on that?
Any questions? Do we have a motion for the Redmond FF&E furniture procurement?
I move to authorize the library director with signing authority up to $600,000 for the Redmond Library's furniture contract and change orders.
We have a second? Second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so we're ready for the next one on the Stevens Ranch location.
Yeah, so this is, with the setting the GMPs, and we've done this with the others, is that we'll do it in 3 phases. This is the first amendment, and so these are the trades that we want to bring on early. And I tried to list them in there, so it's, as you can see, the electrical, mechanical, plumbing, fire sprinklers, PV, and elevator, earthwork, site utilities, and the DLT materials and framing systems. So these are all trades. One of the things that Kirby does and is doing really well, and it's making a big difference, is it's a process called BIM modeling. And they take the construction documents and model it in more detail. And it's down to where every pipe runs in the building. every fitting, every joint, every turn, where every piece of equipment is exactly detailed and laid out how it's gonna fit. And they model how the building frame, the structure goes together. Now, the architect does a lot of this and they take it another step with and the subcontractors use this model to create their shop drawings and their submittals and their fabrication drawings. So they prefabricate a lot of parts and pieces in their plants, in their factories or shops to bring out to the site all ready to just assemble. And so it's something that, on Redmond, we did it early, but we want to do it earlier here because there's such a value to that. And it also allows us to start engaging with these sub trades with the design team and really having some close coordination. And they work really well together on the other projects. But this, as we are going through to get to our 100% CD set, which occurs out in January, it allows the subs to start bringing in input and talk about, hey, this is exactly how we're going to route piping. The routing of piping and conduit, it's something you don't see because most of it's hidden, but it's one of the more important complex elements that we go through. So we want to bring them on. We want to start our purchasing process with them on long lead items, electrical switch gear. 16 months to get that. Big complex piece of equipment, and it has a very long lead time. And so that's something that place that order short. And mechanical equipment is very similar, that has long lead times. Our PV system has a large design build system. Miller Hull's team has really figured out where they can place it all, but we really want to get that functioning and moving forward and the design build aspect and finalize that so we can order that. The panels have a fairly lengthy time frame to get those. There's a large demand, and so we want to get them all ordered early. Same with our timber structure. So that's the DLT panels as well as all of the structural columns and beams in that. They have a length of time, but the other part is how much the BIM modeling of those has been beneficial. You know, we talked earlier about we had the topping out party at Redmond, and I'll tell you, when you start to assemble a building like that, there's generally things that come out and it just doesn't fit for whatever reason, and you got to come up with a modification and fix it and assemble. And to date, we've had almost no fit up issues there, meaning every one of the parts and pieces is fitting right where it's supposed to. The connections are properly aligned. There's been literally no modification to any of our connectors. And a lot of it is driven off of early work that Kirby and their subs are doing with the design team to make sure these things are happening. And it's very commendable on their efforts on that side. And we're seeing the benefits of the results in that we don't have delays. Those are things that can cause delays and impacts. So we want to get them brought on board. Elevator, just sheer lead time on elevators nowadays and bringing them on board. We want to get that on order early. And then our site, earthwork and site utilities, is to have them ready to go come December here and get them on board. So those are all of the trades that we wanted to do that with. There's monies in this initial award that is portions of general conditions and general requirements, which is those costs that Kirby incurs in managing and building a project. And so we're advancing some of them, and then all of their typical markups. And that's what you see in that spreadsheet that's behind there. It walks through and identifies by trade the trades that are anticipated to be awarded, so they're under the column called Amendment 1. And you can see there's a portion of the general conditions and general requirements, and then you can see the far right column is future amendments as we buy out the balance. This is a fairly large one because these trades that we're bringing on board now are some of our largest and biggest trade cost-wise and importance and scope of work in my mind. So you can see the mass timber is the next line down there. That's about $6.5 million. It's not all of it because there's still some portions that we'll buy out in the future as the plans get more defined. And then on the second page, it really goes through the PD, the elevator, the sprinklers, plumbing, HVAC, grading, and so those are those activities that I summarized in the write-up, but kind of wanted also, this is a document that we use with Kirby in their amendment and how we track it. And you can see as you go to the last page, the budgeted value. We talked earlier about the N budget. It is 87.5, and that includes design contingency levels. So we're really comfortable with where we're at and making this initial contract amendment with them. The future amendments will, like I said, they will come in two pieces. When we get the 95% set of drawings in December, we will go out to the next major group of subs, which will be building concrete, the glass wall system and the sheet metal system, the stone, the roofing materials, and the metal studs and drywall package. They're all kind of the next major group of trades. There may be a few others that Kirby wants to do. And then we'll do a final one when we get all the way through 100% drawings and first round of plan check comments to pick all of that up at that time, finalize. And then we'll buy out all of the finished trades. And that's very similar to how we did Redmond. And it's worked very successfully in not taking too much risk buying all of it today, but buying critical trades today. And so that's where we're at. Questions?
I wanted to make a comment, and I did have a question too. It's really great to see how, you know, for the really the largest building, the most complex building, everybody's been able to learn off of all the other previous constructions, and that's really great to see. I wanted to ask, what is the DLT materials?
So that's the dowel laminated timber.
Okay.
And so that's the floor planks and the roof planks.
Okay.
And it's acoustical because it has acoustical material built right into it.
And that's what you're seeing in Redmond when they came in and put all those planks down.
Right.
On both floors. That's
That's what
the
that
evidence.
was.
Yeah. So it's, you know, it's definitely a newer technology. It's not real new, but it's being utilized more and more here in our country. Europe used it much longer than we did, but it's a good system. You eliminate a lot of other things because it's architectural. You can see it. Has structural capacity to where it can span, so you eliminate supporting members as compared to other forms, and it's renewable. You know, from a green standpoint, it's a renewable source because we can grow trees. Where some of the other things, you know, steel, we're mining and bringing out iron ore out of the ground. You can't make more iron ore. So.
Any other questions? Is there a motion for the Stevens Ranch location guaranteed maximum price amendment?
I'll move to authorize the library director with signing authority up to $40,422,355 for the KNCC Stevens Ranch Library Construction Contract through GMP Amendment Number 1.
Is there a second? All those in favor? Those opposed? Are you there with us, Ray?
I'm back. No, I'm voting no.
You're voting, you said no?
No.
Yes. So, no.
Okay. All right. We're ready then to move on to our monitoring results policies.
Okay. So this is your annual results monitoring report. As a reminder, the board sets priorities with results every year. We'll actually be doing that in our work session in November. And our goal as a staff is to try to communicate how we are reaching your results through this process. So a couple of pieces here is depends on how you want to. Hopefully you all had a chance to read the report. So I think what I'd like to do is and this happens with all of these reports, we can throw numbers, we can throw information at you, but I really like to try to get what is the impact of these things as they happen. So Sarah, if you're out there, I think Sarah was going to share some of the experiences we've had. Welcome, Sarah.
Hello.
Okay. And yes, maybe Sarah, if you can kind of share something, especially with the experience we've had doing engagement out in the community, how that's worked with our partners, with our librarians.
Yes, it's been a really wonderful year for connecting with our partners out in the community. We've been making a stronger effort to be out away from the buildings and meeting with people in the neighborhoods, in the parks. And our summer with the library kickoff was a great example of that, where we had hundreds of people come out to Alpenglow Park, and we had partners out there. Not in this year's report, but just the most recent example would be we had a Lapine Health Fair, and we had 35 partners join us, and about 300 people we're estimating came through the health fair to talk with the partners we brought in and to get resources from the library. So those are the kinds of events that we are trying to create more and more. What's been really gratifying is that we, the library, are now being invited to more and more events that other partners are hosting. And so it's been a wonderful ripple effect where just by us dropping that pebble in, it's creating more waves for us to then ride and participate in. Yeah, anything else that you would like to hear?
When this point of order, after if you have any, we'll go through questions on this, and then I do want to dig into the statistics before we go to any motions. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Anybody have any questions about it?
Thank you, sir.
I wanted to know a little bit more about I thought it was great because I think these are important issues, but on the second page, the residents explore and discuss topical issues. The second thing, the program, the team explored topical issues this year through presentations of AI and the use of psilocybin in the treatment. I thought that was fantastic that you guys were discussing that. Can you kind of talk a little bit about what it's on the second page?
Oh, okay.
Was that part of it was just the DPL team that discussed all of that and it said they had people, experts that were their facilitators.
And that, I'm not sure if that was a program that was done with the librarians or program? Librarians. So Sarah, do you have any information on that?
The AI program, I believe that was with Liz.
And, oh, okay. So these would all be related to our programming. Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't have anybody Friend program needs to delve into that further, so. Yeah,
If you are interested, Cynthia, that program I know was recorded, and so if you go to our YouTube channel, you can see the AI program
Okay,
on video.
okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Also, then the second one, the residents understand the types and scope of services that the libraries provide. This, I think, is probably the biggest challenge any organization constantly has. I know as a teacher, and I'm sure you experience the same thing. We were constantly thinking, oh, we're doing such a great job of getting out there and getting the information. And then we'd have people come back and I didn't really know about that. And in fact, a good friend of mine, just the other day, I said, oh, I was stopping and visiting her. And I said, well, I got to go to the library. And she said, oh, you have to drive all the way to Bend? I said, no, I'm going to the Redmond library. And she said, well, what do you mean? Redmond's library is under construction. She did not, she was shocked. And I was like, so I like, this my question is, because as I said, I think this is an ongoing problem with every single organization out there. How do you let the general public know about what's going on? So do you guys, one of the things, do you guys ever connect with other libraries and find out what they're doing to see if maybe there's a hole you're able to plug?
No, we do, we always set our sights on libraries that are larger than us to look at how they do things. So we look at New York Public, we look at Denver Public, Seattle, and Multnomah. And we track them on their social media, we get their e-newsletters, we stay on top of what they do. And we have, and we can do a report on communications, but we have outshone those 4 libraries multiple times on our reach per capita. So we do everything that they are doing and a little bit more, because we have a really, really strong social media team. And also our YouTube channel is bigger than probably any library on the West Coast. Yeah. So it's just a constant, like you said, Cynthia, like we send out a monthly e-newsletter that goes to 40,000 people in Deschutes County. But whether they open that newsletter or not, that's the ticket, right? And where we have a lot of success on social media is that people actually click and share a lot of what we put up. So it's just, trying to get the word out in a variety of ways. So we do that through newspapers, online on newspapers, through all of our e-newsletters, our events guide that's printed and online.
Yeah.
And it's just constant. We do Google ads to try to draw people into these different things. It's,
Well,
that's
I
what we need is from.
I really appreciate the fact that you guys also have a presence in the homeless section of our community, because I think that's so necessary. One of the things as a teacher that I learned was that our families who had the most difficulty with money and things like that, at the poverty level, they were the ones who had such a hard time knowing what the heck was going on in the school. I mean, even getting out there to let them know we have conferences, those were my families I never had come in for conferences unless I physically went to their homes. So I don't want you to think I'm being critical at all, because I'm not, because I think I was really impressed with this in looking at it and all the ways that you guys have tried to connect. But I know that there's, as I said, my friend didn't even know.
Yeah.
I was shocked, but people have to actually be interested themselves too. They have to take part of the responsibility to find out what's going on.
They do.
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
Give them the info, but
yeah, I think we have better messaging and marketing than any library that I've ever heard about. And I know from my work on the state board that we're the envy of all the libraries in Oregon. And I know the envy of libraries throughout the West. So I think we do a great job, but I think what Sarah just shared about is also like a really great component to add in, because we get into, people get kind of siloed and they pay attention to the stuff they pay attention to. But when we can get out in front of them with another partner that maybe is what they pay attention to, then they hear about it. And I think we get the word out on so many different fronts and in so many different ways, and I think partners are just a great venue to expand there.
Absolutely.
So all of it is really good.
And it looks like Ray has a question.
Oh, right.
Oh, a comment. You know, we've come a long, long way since what, 20-something years, and letting people know or communicating to our communities about what we do. So kudos on that. I think one of the key things I heard Sarah say is we are being invited to participate with other community organizations. And that is the big step to say, what's the results of what we're doing? And the result of what we're doing is we're being invited to be there. I've always said, we don't want to just be at the table, we want to be the table. And I think we're getting to that point. So that's excellent. I've always beat on Todd saying, so what? What's the result of all this level of effort? And that is one result. It's great that we're being asked. If you could, if Sarah, if you could add, not at this point, but at some future time in writing, who's asking us to participate? And what are they asking us for? Not just space, but for what else is it that we're providing to them? Information, expertise, that kind of support.
I'd be happy to, yeah.
That'd be great. The other is, we've always asked, whenever we do basically marketing, advertising, how do we know what the effect is on that? And one of the things we've seen in the past is, do we get a bump? Like when we come out with the newsletter, highlight certain programs, is there a bump at that point in participation? Are we actually reaching people and getting them to actually change their behavior? Because that's what we're looking for, is behavioral changes, not just, oh, I saw your webpage, that's nice. So do we have any information on that?
Yes, so great question, and we track that constantly at all different levels. So our website, we track all the algorithms of how people get, you know, they click on our website, where do they go? And then when we are advertising something specific, like let's say it is one of our databases, we know between like these 6 weeks that we are advertising that specific database. And then Wiley's able to pull up the impact that it made or did not make, right? And so that's been really useful, and we've used that for about 10 years now. With social media, that is a wonderful resource where like the Google ads or Facebook, et cetera, they keep all those numbers and algorithms for us. So we can pull up a weekly report, a monthly report, et cetera, and then go and see what was the impact on the program attendance. Let's say if we were highlighting specific programs that were occurring. So the majority of the time we see an uptick, or whatever we're focusing on, there's an uptick on that attendance or that interest in that specialty. Our e-newsletter, we're able to track as well because it's through constant contact, and it shows us how many people receive it, how many people click on it, and then how much time people spend reading that newsletter. So then we track and see again what were the top interest areas. So for a long time, like our employment area on the website during the downtime, let's say in 2007, 2008, it was our #1 space that people went to on our website, aside from the catalog. So we're able to track this through a variety of different ways. Yeah.
That'd be great if we could see some of those. To see what the trend, if there's a trend at all, but also to give the board information on what the public is really interested in. What do they want to get from the library?
Great.
Okay, anything else? All right,
Well, let me jump to statistics and, and as I said with the other piece, you had a chance to read it. I wasn't gonna go in depth, but with charts, it's worthwhile to go through together.
Sure.
Because you can interpret them any which way. And I think this will be helpful for us just to get a sense of what's happening out there. So, let's see. Okay. Currently, whoops. So our first one we're looking at is the circulation, which for me is there's an amazing story. There's an amazing story in that little blue thing. The 22-23 represents that our circulation, we're inching up after a downturn with COVID, but this represents a year when we had 3 of our buildings closed and very, very temporary,
right.
limited spaces available for people to check out. So that's actually a pretty amazing number considering the kind of chaos we threw into this system here. That's your foreshadowing. I'm going to be really excited about this bar in about 2 years when we've got all our buildings open. Kind of the attendance also reflects that. We definitely have lower attendance. A good example for Sisters and soon for Sun River, we can only have, was it about 6 people, 9
Yes.
people in the building?
9 total.
We have 2 staff usually, so 7 people from the public in the building at one time. Definitely limited the amount of usage we had in those. And unfortunately with the Pine, losing the ability to serve them at all for some large chunks of time. A similar story for the attendance by branch. Though, amazingly, this is we have the most new cards issued in a 1-year span in our entire history of Deschutes Public Library, going back to 1920.
Wow. I was really impressed by that.
Yes, yeah.
And there's a connection back to what Sarah Thompson was talking about just the outreach events and the time out there. That's phenomenal. Connected with this.
Also, we had a big month of pushing new cards and advertising, directly linking advertising to results as well. The read watch listen percentage, it doesn't change a lot over time. The watch is definitely going down, and that's a big reflection of people are moving more to streaming and DVDs. That's probably the biggest takeaway from this piece. The listening continues to be a growing piece for us. People are really, we started talking about this about 7 or 8 years ago, but and you're seeing it daily, that people are really getting into downloadable audio. The read breakdown, just again, an interesting look at how people are reading. Our magazines are definitely, as what's happening in society, the use of magazines has been going down, and that's probably the biggest trend you'll see. Again, this just reflects what I just said about DVDs really being on the downturn. And we don't have music CDs anymore, so that's a big piece for that going away. And then also just the digital audio, the growth there. This is a more stark representation of that. Circulation by genre, just an interesting one for us to track over time. And my interpretation, the part of this is these shutdowns and closures are impacting children the most. Especially when you're in small temporary spaces, they're the ones They're not getting materials. Adults are much better at thinking ahead, placing holds, being able to get materials out of there. This one is one of my favorites. I hope you have some questions around this one.
Seems like a large increase.
What was different?
And ignore the fact we have a typo in here. It's 22, 23. This is not a typo in the numbers though. And Sarah, you might want to jump in, but what we did was book a librarian. We were being very specific about one small piece of what our librarians were doing and connecting with people, but they do so much more. And so this is reflecting, we started saying, let's take all those things we do where people are connecting with us and start telling this. And Sarah, if you're still there, can you say a little bit more about what those would be?
Yeah, this was really interesting. So to give y'all some context, before 2021, the librarian team had been split between youth services and adult services. And so what you had been seeing before then in the Book of Librarian numbers were mainly only what the adult services librarians were doing. In 2021, we combined and became library services instead of just youth or just adult. And so we started really looking at how we kept statistics, and we made sure that we were including what everyone was doing. So with the youth services team, that means all the teacher requests, anytime they met individually with an educator, they gave class tours, none of that was being counted before. The other thing that we did is we also created a sort of new service that's related to Book a Librarian called Book a Trainer. And so this is when people, so we've had several nonprofits, for example, reach out and ask for a training for their staff on our databases, or they'll ask for a training on one of the various resources that we offer. So all of that put together, counting the services we've done all along, but just never had stats for, and also offering new services. And I believe also the outreach, for example, our librarian, Lisa Shoblum, has been really focusing on nonprofits more in the past year, and we've seen a 30% increase in just nonprofit Book of Librarians. So now we have these numbers that are just amazing.
Thank you, and I'll highlight, these are not people coming and asking us, where's that book? These are in-depth interviews and education with people that take extended time. So there's a very impressive look at what we're doing. Let's see. Okay. Get ready for my annual qualifications. I always think it's kind of interesting to compare how are we doing with other libraries. And then the caveat here is these are based on state library statistics that are a year behind. So when we're looking at this, if you're starting to worry about how are we doing with first search per capita, this is reflecting how we were doing 2 years ago. Since we do this every year, you start to kind of see trends, but I was kind of comparing with last year's, and there were some significant changes in all libraries based on COVID and how things were coming out. So this will be interesting for us. Imagine next year, we will probably look worse, considering that's going to be considering, well, actually, I don't know how much worse, because we're actually going up in circulation, but we won't be as impressive as it will be in about 2 years. It's still very interesting to see. And every year, we always want to know what in the world's going on in Cedar Mill.
And I know, I felt very gratified that we were equal with Cedar Mill on digital. Because
yes, digital really is an important one for us. We made a concerted effort about 10 years ago to go on our own way with digital, to reduce hold times for people. The rest of the state is kind of on a statewide group. Libraries can put in more funds. That's why Multnomah stays high. But that's a great sign for us. It shows the level of commitment we've made towards digital. Program attendance. Very interesting. This is, something's happening in Corvallis. And that they were always traditionally low, and I know that they've actually been making efforts in this area, so this is a good sign for us to start investigating what they're up to.
What is up with the scale on this one and the next one?
Oh, sorry.
The scale seems really screwy.
You know what? I don't know. Wiley, can you chime in? I don't know if you heard that question.
Yeah, I think it's because those numbers are really small and the scale is rounding it. It really should be going out to 3 digits probably.
Well, that's what I
Yeah.
assumed, is it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, since it's per capita and you're talking about
Right.
some
yeah,
smaller numbers,
okay.
that's going to do it. Thank you, but I never would have.
So is this basically saying Multnomah County Library does absolutely no adult programming?
I'm not sure what it says. There's always, it could be, they are misinterpreting how to publish their numbers with the state, or
Yeah.
they're not tracking. I don't know.
And you said you guys have investigated what's going on in Corvallis, or you were thinking?
Not Corvallis.
But we will.
We will.
We always beat them before.
It's a,
Okay.
it's the first time they've popped up on our radar.
Oh,
Put it that way. Teen, this is, we always are the highest for teen.
really?
Yes, and I
was really impressed with that.
I'm not, and again, to be fair to the libraries, I'm not sure how they're counting, how
Yeah.
they're doing with teens, but we also make a concerted effort.
Right.
To make sure we're getting to where things are, so that's it. And then children's program, per capita, again, this is, basically more, I could say, it's sparking interest in what's going on with other libraries, because there were some big changes in how some of these libraries, reported over the last year. And the last ones are public website, overview, just give you a sense of how many, because that's the number one thing that people come in and use online, is going straight to our public website. And really gives us kind of a sense of what's happening. I think it's very interesting to see the rise in unique users. It's pretty significant over the last few years, so. And that, that's it, I'll stop sharing, and
Anyone have any questions?
Yes, a couple of questions. That you bring it up, let's see, table, which table is it for adult program attendance? Table 13. The left-hand bars make no sense.
but that, we just discussed that, Ray, that's, we need to bring it out one more percentage, because they're such small numbers, it's rounding.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw
Rounding.
what chat, but he concurred that it's a rounding scale.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, so last year, Cedar Mills was at practically 0.025.
Okay.
We were at 0.2. And now we're at 0.02. It seems to have gone down.
I'm not totally sure what you're asking, but we could probably have.
Yeah, the 2021 statistic, our adult program attendance is 0.20. And now we're at 0.020. Is there we're a factor of 10. It just doesn't seem to be consistent from one year to the next. Or it's actually showing we're at the same, which Corvallis Benton went from last year from 0.025 to 0.05. And Corvallis Benton last year was way below us.
Yeah.
Program attendance. So things, I don't know how to take these, the bar graphs. The data seems to be screwy. Not just the left-hand column, significant numbers, but the actual bar graph itself. We're way above Corvallis Benton last year, and now we're way below Corvallis Benton this year.
Well, yeah, so Wiley points out a good point. These are from a year ago, so this would have been before our closures. I'm not totally sure what you're getting at, but yes, there was a significant jump in Corvallis Benton. That is true.
Okay.
Did you have a question, Ray?
Yes, I guess that was, yeah, the question.
That was the question, is the concerns, just not the significant figures for the left-hand bar, but the actual data bars themselves. Looks like there's differences. Yeah, I'd like to see this both last year's and this year's redone with the significant figures in place, so we know what the actual numbers are.
Yes, well, we can definitely adjust this out another decimal point so you can get a sense of.
Yeah, we can look at last year's also to make sure it's correct. The same data points.
Yes. B21.
We can do that. The other question I have is, we go back to attendance. Table 3, attendance by branch.
Let me bring that up.
Sure.
Okay.
So it's significant that it's going up slightly for downtown Bend, actually plateauing, and pretty much stable. Well, significant drops on everybody in 22, 23. And then we used to have attendance per square foot. And we haven't reported that for several years now. So I've been doing rough calculation back on that. And everything has dropped and usage per square foot. But still the highest is East Bend. This year it's running, attendance is per square foot is 10. Downtown is 7.1.
Okay.
So everybody's going down somewhat. The rest are about 3.
Yes.
And Redmond, because I don't have the square foot, and it's not really open, so it's not significant. But then the central library we're planning is what, 115,000 square feet now? What is the actual figure on central library? It was 120.
98,000 square feet.
98,000.
Yes.
So just in comparison then, for East Bend at 10 per square foot, so that'd be 9.8, 980,000.
Well, but Ray, I want to remind you that the administration building is also moving into Stevens Ranch. So a portion of that square footage at Stevens Ranch is not going to apply to attendance. Overall, attendance per square footage is not a useful metric. It doesn't really tell you anything about the how well our customers and community members are utilizing the resources that we have.
Why not?
It just tells you how many bodies are standing in a box.
And
yeah. But we use that number the per capita per square foot in order to determine size of the buildings that we wanted, especially central library. So are we saying that's not a significant, that's not a correct number to be using?
Well,
One
Ray,
case, but all right, correct in another? I mean, we have to normalize somehow for size.
okay, so I just point out a few things. One, I'm not sure what you're referring to because we don't track that number. Number two, what we really should be focusing on as a board is what are we trying to achieve in our buildings? If what we're trying to achieve in our building is to maximize the use per square foot for attendance, then we would take a different look at the way we are doing things. So you're correct in your numbers by dividing in there, but I'm not sure what it tells you when you say that East Bend has more usage per square foot than, say, downtown Bend.
So what number, what metric are we going to use?
For what?
If the buildings are accomplishing what we want them to.
That is the question for the board to answer. As I say, with statistics, there's a reason I gave you a lot of different charts because no one statistic tells the entire story of what we do as a district. So it really, as a board, I would recommend looking at how are we achieving the results policies? Are we, and that's the biggest one, are we meeting what we are setting out to accomplish with our community? How are we meeting the demands of the public? What they're saying they would like to see in the buildings? What does that look like? So I think there's a number of factors, and it's a good discussion for the board as to what are the most important metrics for you all when we're planning for the future.
So maybe Ray, what Ray's bringing up and what you're mentioning, maybe that'd be something that we could bring up and have a discussion during a work session.
Yeah.
I think that would make more sense rather than doing it during a board meeting.
Sure. I think
That's why I'm bringing it up because I think we need to have, in my opinion, we should have been discussing this well before starting construction and saying which size buildings we need in each community. But better late than never. What are the metrics that we should be looking at? And are there?
I think we looked at a number of things when we were planning that building. And most of that was based on the input of the public, of what services did the public say in that extensive public input series of community conversations that we had. What did people want? And then that building was designed around providing what people said that they wanted. And so I don't believe that you're never gonna, I just don't see that attendance per capita is a valuable measure. And I don't think any of the consultants we worked with ever said, this is what you've got to do. I mean, you could, so I think we designed those buildings and the building size specifically around function. And we had different sets of architects who looked at what we were trying to accomplish, the goals that the board voted on and laid out. And both sets of architects came up with nearly identical building size for that building, which gave me confidence that that building size was the correct building size.
Have you ever seen a metric from the Oregon State Library Board talking about square footage and usage? Have you ever seen a metric like that? I mean, for any of the other libraries?
No, and I just to pull us back a bit. Just for the confidence of the board is we're all aware that we had very in-depth conversations about what we were trying to achieve with these buildings, and that's how they were designed. So I would not characterize it as we didn't look at this one statistic, so we never should have designed the buildings the way they should have done. But I will highlight, we will be talking about results policies at the work session.
Okay,
And if there is more information that the board needs to be able to make effective decisions, we should definitely address those, because that'll help us planning and it may change the way we're gathering statistics in the future.
I mean, for me, it makes more sense for us to have a conversation like this during the work session.
Yeah, I think you're
I
right.
think it should be brought up.
Yeah, I did have a question for you, on
Oh,
the,
wait. So we're going to put that on our next work session?
Yeah, we'll be talking about results prioritization, and that would be definitely a good time to discuss it.
well, on the table 14, on the one about the teen programs, I was really impressed with that, but I was gonna ask, I noticed when I going and looking in the teen section here, it's kind of, there's not much in there. Are the managers of each library planning on kind of pulling a group of teens together to design some things, that how they want it decorated or how they want it organized or anything? I know that was something when we went to the library in Vancouver. That was something that they did. They kind of left their teen section blank, they told us, and then they invited the teens to kind of make some suggestions and design to make it their own space. So I was wondering, is that a possibility of something that might be happening?
That's definitely a possibility, sure, for Stevens Ranch and downtown Bend, and, yeah,
Okay, but not like here.
Well, this is how we've designed them, but things can always change as we go forward.
Yeah.
Other highlight for the teen area here, and we go through it, is there's also the meeting space next to it, which would be available.
I was just wondering. Okay. So we're ready to move on to the financial planning?
Or you need a motion on
Oh.
the policy.
Oh, we do need a motion.
Yeah, this is one of our annual monitoring.
Okay, so anybody want to make a motion on the monitoring results policy?
I would move that we, how do I want to say this?
Oh dear.
Just approve. Oh, you've got that, I didn't. Okay, thank you. I move that the library is in compliance with the results policies monitoring report.
Any second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
I have some comment, a question on this, on table 6.
Right, we're back on this.
The read watch. Or the read breakdown. I noticed our print books are approximately 850,000.
I'm sorry, table what, 6?
6, yeah.
What are you asking, Ray, about table 6?
Well, I'm noticing that print books are 850,000, ebooks are about 450,000.
Mhm.
And then if we look at table 8, audio downloadable books, there's about 400,000. So our digital materials, 850,000, almost equal to our print materials. And I just received a email today from Publishers Weekly, looking at sales of print material in all the bookstores and everything else that sells print material, books. And print books overall in general are down 4.9% in sales. I mean, I'm wondering, is this an indication that, I mean, it was a good thing we started putting more in our budget for digital materials. But is there a trend going on here?
Well, maybe more people are checking books out from libraries than buying them. That could be one possible
Yeah,
explanation.
that's possible.
Of all the comments that I have heard, most people really are wanting to make sure that we have physical books in the library
Right.
and that hold times are reduced, and people are excited about the fact that we're gonna double the size of the collection. I
Mhm.
mean, most people have really, that I talked to, really expressed a desire for that, and we saw that loud and clear in the public comments leading up to this, is that people value physical books, particularly younger readers, surprisingly. It's interesting, it's kind of counterintuitive, but. And I also, I tend to trust. I mean, I think gathering information ourselves is great, but I also rely strongly on our professional librarians to keep on top of that and to know trends. I mean, this is their profession. And I think they're gonna have way more information than we as individual board members have. I mean, I don't think that part is necessarily my job to be an expert on the split between digital and physical materials. That's their profession, and I respect.
I would recommend, this is a good discussion, that we hold it for December when Emily brings her annual report on our library collection.
Yeah, that's.
Because she will dig much deeper than we are doing here to really see what trends are and what factors they're looking at when they're designing our collection.
And it also seems to me it's important. I mean, I think looking at the national section is important, but I think really looking at what's going on here in Deschutes County, that's what's more important to us. So I agree. I would like to hold off on this discussion until we have Emily's report and she can share with us. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. It's been made and second. So all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed?
I'm gonna vote no because I don't understand what the graphs are.
Okay.
All right, so now we move on to the financial planning and budgeting. Is that
Yes.
right?
Yeah,
Okay,
sorry, I got a good time. So this is a annual monitoring report. One of the shorter and simpler ones. Basically saying that there were a few things we will not allow. I'm not allowed to do with budgeting. One, inconsistent with priorities identified by the board as part of the annual results monitoring process. And that's always an easy one for me because the way I develop the budget is I go from your prioritization in November. We work with staff, develop those, and then we actually address them in the budget as well. The second one contains insufficient information, enable credible presentations of revenue expenses. Thank you. And I can't read today, operation items, cash flow. And that, again, that is something that we lay out in our budget processing. It's a discussion we have during the budget process. And I think through time and with the audits, you'll see that we have had credible projections of those each year. The last one plans the expenditure in any fiscal year of more funds than are conservatively projected to be available in that period. And again, that's an easy one as the board, especially with the general fund, sets the minimum fund balance. I did add a comment in here this year that we are significantly above the minimum fund balance, and that's a reflection of the planning that we have been doing, gearing up for the opening of new buildings, because we have known and know that we will have to increase staffing. So we do expect that number to start going down, basically with next year's budget as we start with our first round of adding staff with the new Redmond library in the next fiscal year. So my interpretation is that we are in compliance with the district's financial planning and budgeting executive limitations policy. And then I should have added, if you haven't seen this, this is probably in the last page of your package. Okay.
So do we have a motion on the financial planning and budgeting?
I'll move that the library is in compliance with the financial planning and budgeting monitoring report.
You have a second?
I will second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
I have a question, a concern. That what I'm reading here, if I'm understanding right, Todd, is we've got 18 million in reserve. And you're expecting to spend that down with the opening of all the libraries. I'm concerned at what rate that's going to be spent down. And at what point are we going to be in trouble, if any? And I know in the past, what we've done in financial projections, long-term projections, is to be revenue conservative and expenses liberal to see what's the worst case. So my concern is being able to see on a 5-year basis, at least, how far this 18 million is going to take us and how we're going to be replenishing it, keeping it above the 17% that we require in the budget. That's my only concern on that.
That is a valid concern.
Yeah,
And
so
that's
I will vote, with that concern, I will vote yes, that you're meeting the results policy.
Any other conversation, concerns, questions? Motion passes. So updating library.
Library news, I'm gonna defer to a chance to walk around the building and point out some of the things we have. But we'll highlight, we have a grand opening this Saturday here at the Lapine Library. Saturday will also be the last day of opening for Sun River before we shut down and move to the temporary facility. And then 2 more weeks, the 28th, does that sound right? Will be the grand opening for the Sisters Library. So significant dates coming. And so that's it. And I'll hopefully have a chance to tour. I will highlight, please don't make any decisions while you're touring because you're a quorum. So,
Okay.
I don't foresee us throwing out big decisions for you, but
Okay.
there you go.
Any updates on foundation news?
No, because I've been gone, so I don't.
Oh,
know
that's
what's
true.
going on.
So critical communication.
I did not identify any for this meeting.
So we ready for self-review of the meeting? Ray, let's start with you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, sorry I can't be there in person. We have something here going on here. And nice meeting. Thank you very much. And I like Sarah's report. More of those will get me off of Todd's back.
Yes.
A good meeting again. As always, I really appreciate reports from the staff. Very exciting to hear that we are now being asked to participate in community events. I think that's always been the purpose of the library, is to be a very integral part of the community. So very encouraging to hear that that's happening more and more. I mean, we are so involved in so many things, but it's nice to see the community coming to us and asking. So good meeting.
And Nelson?
I echo those thoughts. It has been a good meeting and I am excited at our progress forward and I found the statistics and the priority results report interesting as always, and I think it's a real testimony to the staff that we have continued to expand what we do, continue to reach people, despite the problems of, post-COVID problems, which everybody has had to contend with, but the fact that our circulation is increasing, that our attendance is increasing, despite the fact that we've had a bunch of buildings closed. I think is really great news that people are continuing to turn to us as their source for information and entertainment. And I credit that with the great staff that we have. So, yeah, it's always interesting.
No, thank you. Great meeting. I'm just really excited to show you our new building. So,
Yeah.
there you go.
So I thought it was also a really good meeting, and I really appreciated Sarah and Wiley jumping in and sharing information, and Chantal, you guys it's always so great having people here to share more information with us, and so had a lot of good information. So with that, I will end this meeting and we can go on our tour. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Roger.
Yeah, we got it.